the two of you imagine a community where people are as safe as possible, what does that community have in its place?
What I would say, so there's safe for it to be safe, right? And security, there'd have to be accessibility to everything somebody needs, right? And I'm talking to you, right? Not the camera. Is that okay? Okay, sorry. I would say that there needs to be things that everybody needs, right? So we think about like human needs. Maslow talks about the hierarchy of needs, and he kind of starts with like the basic needs that needs to be present. But there's also other needs that we need, right? To feel accepted, right? To feel secure, to feel like we belong, to have purpose, right? And so like I would say that if we were to visualize that, it would be in a space where there would be equity, and so that people had accessibility, and then where they were lacking or where they struggled at, that they would still be able to get access to whatever it is that they had deficits in, right? And so if they needed more food or if they needed more shelter, but then also if they didn't have family, right, that they would have access to that. If they didn't have a space where they felt like they were important, that they would have access to that, right? And so I would say that they would just have access to all of their needs.
I read an article yesterday about Maslow's needs and where he got it from, which was the Blackfoot tribe, and they were talking about Maslow. When he was 30, he went there to live with them for a few months because he was trying to test, like, he's Austrian, and he wanted to see, like, it's my theory of what people need, like, universal. So I'm gonna go to the Blackfoot tribe in America, and that's where he like came up with his needs, because what he found like with them was like they had like almost like a real community where safety and like your basic needs, it wasn't something you had to like think about. It was just they didn't have, well, from what I read from the article, I'm not an expert, but um, they didn't have possessions or money. They worked together. They were almost like a family. So the community was like the extension of your family. And so it wasn't a matter of not even having your basic needs met. Like that was like a given. If the community had its needs met, that meant anyone that was there had them met. And I feel like, I mean, that's what safety is. I think I almost feel like safety and community. It's like you can't have real community without that safety, and it's not just safety in the sense of like no violence, but it's right being fed, having shelter, feeling like you belong, feeling like you matter.
This is tough, right? Because one of the challenges that we find is that the community needs more healing, right? But you need to feel safe to be healed, right? So like, for example, right, a soldier in a wartime situation can't let down his guard enough and feel safe enough to actually begin the healing process. He has to wait till he gets home. He has to be in an environment that is flourishing and comfortable and accepting and loving, getting all of his needs met. So it's a catch-22, right? Like the murder of George Floyd and sort of some of the uprising things that have happened in North Minneapolis, and I live in North Minneapolis right up the street. We cannot heal without feeling safe, right? Because your body needs to be able to relax enough. We need to have the anxiety eradicated enough. We need to not feel like we're in a threatened position. So we need healing, but we can't have healing without safety, right? And so it's kind of a catch-22. To answer that question, what does my community need more of? Is healing. Well, we need more of healing, but healing can't happen without safety. So what we really need is more safety, right? We need more of our needs being met. We need to not be at the bottom of the barrel trying to scrape our way to the top, which then it becomes very individualized. It's about survival. It's not about community. It's about how can I make it? How can my family make it? So if you're in an environment that's not safe, it's hard to think of community. It's hard to think of healing. So what I would say is my community needs more healing, but they need more safety before healing can happen. So then we need less of a threat. right? We need to be in spaces that we don't have to worry about police violence. We need to be in spaces where we don't have to worry about random gunfire. We need to be in spaces where everything that we desire to do or have is accessible and we can get to it, right? So we need less threat, more safety, so that we can have more healing. Makes sense? Yeah.
Yeah. I think too, like what you were talking about is almost like the triage model too. Like you have to stop the bleeding
Yeah.
before you can start the healing,
That's good.
and people are under attack right now.
That's right.
Um, like we were talking about how we envision safety. Like it's not just physical violence. So when the police brutalize one person, other people aren't being physically attacked, but they're being attacked psychologically and emotionally.
Vicariously. Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's a daily thing, and so that's why people's guards are up, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's why people don't feel like they can trust and feel like they don't belong. And
So, first, how are you taking care of your mental health right now? Just gonna throw that in there. I know it's not on the list, but
Okay. So I do a few things. I do a lot of yoga. I work out a lot. That's like my personal preference. If I don't, I feel like all over the place. I meditate, and I want to say I eat relatively healthy, but if I'm feeling like I need something, I'm craving something, I do that. I just kind of give myself grace, a lot more than I used to. So I think those are like things that really help me to stay grounded right now. It might change. You know, it was different in the past, especially like last year. It was a lot different, more like coping mechanisms rather than like, how do I help myself? Like, heal, yes. It was a lot more coping. This year, I think I have a little bit better of a handle where there's like less coping, more just kind of like self-understanding. Yeah.
when you imagine a community where people are as safe as possible, what has to be in that community?
Less police, first off, yeah. I think that there's a lot of opportunity for us to police ourselves. And I think that there's always going to be a learning curve for anything new. But if we take our time and I think, don't look for like one leader. I don't think that there's one leader for anything. And like, you guys are leaders in what you're doing. Like, I'm a leader in what I'm doing. They're leaders. Alicia's a leader. So it's like, there has to be some kind of self-understanding and understanding where we all kind of see eye to eye, even if we don't all agree on like the direction, you know? So I think there has to be more room for more leadership and equally shared leadership. I think there needs to be more community, more options for community, more options for empathy and compassion in spaces where, can I swear? Is it okay if I swear? Okay, where like bullshit happens, like, because bullshit's gonna happen. You know, no one is perfect. None of us are perfect people. So I think offering space where there can be accountability and compassion at the same time. And then maybe not just not throwing people away when we make mistakes.
Not seeing people as disposable.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's very easy to just be like, okay, you made a mistake, well, like, get him out of here. But like, who hasn't made a mistake in their life, you know? Who hasn't done something wrong or something fucked up? Like, we've all done something fucked up. Maybe some a little more than others, you know? But I think there has to be some kind of general compassion and awareness around the fact that we all need to heal.
So the question again is, what does your community need more of to be safer? And then on the flip side of that, what does your community need less of to be safer?
I mean, the less I feel like is easy. The less is definitely, like we said, police, policy. Policy that is not created by folks of color, by black folks, by brown folks, most specifically black folks, because if we're not in there creating policy, then how do we have a say in what's happening to us? Less kings, more folks. You know, we don't definitely. Wow, I'm from Chicago. That sounded very gang related. Just less people in power who don't have our best interests at heart. And I don't know if it's like voting. The systems haven't worked, you know? And I also think the system is working the way it was designed to work. So sometimes that's not the answer either, even though I wish it was. Sometimes I think, this is probably shitty to say, but sometimes I think more violence is the answer because they keep hurting us. So what is to stop us from doing the same? Which I think is a tricky point of view because while I don't think we're outgunned or outmanned, I think we're out-organized right now. And I think that we need more organizing offline, where we can actually sit down with each other, where there are no phones involved, leave it in a lockbox outside, because at this point, if we're not speaking directly to one another, then other people know what's happening. I think there needs to be more trust amongst each other, amongst organizers and organizations. And just, I go back to what I said in the last question, more empathy, more understanding, more awareness around what we actually need, and more agreeance. You know, this is, instead of it being I can exist, I give away bikes, so you can't give away bikes. No, we could just partner, more partnership, more understanding, more agreeance with what another is doing, and respect to get each other there, rather than being so individualized. Yeah.
I love that answer. That was great. If the city of Minneapolis replaced the Minneapolis Police Department with a new Department of Public Safety, what would you want to see in that new department?
So first off, I would not want to see Minneapolis replace anything. Dead the police, and dead that idea of public safety, and that they can create anything that's going to keep us safe. Because I think Minneapolis and the city council has already proven that anything they do is going to be to their benefit, right? So I don't want them to, if you're not going to just give us mental health resources and put leadership in place, meaning people from our communities in place to help us, I don't really want to see Minneapolis create shit on my behalf, on your behalf, because they haven't done it already. So I'd like to see them step down. I'd like to see Mayor Frey lose his job. I'd like to see the governor lose his job. I would like to see us stop relying on the police and maybe have a safety number that we can call for us, instead of going directly to I need to call 911. Sure, everyone says well, what are you gonna do without the police? What if we don't have police? Well, that's why you create new systems. And there's a collective in Chicago called Let Us Breathe, and they have been creating policies of their own in their neighborhoods around policing. So if something happens, they have a solution, and maybe it's not the best solution right now, but over time it could be.
Better than what the solution is right now.
Exactly. We that if you call the police on somebody who's black, let alone if you're a dark-skinned black person, you might not see them.